Hello there, my dear friends. Salamun alaikum. It's good to be with you. So the question I want to ask in this video, and I think it's something that have occurred to quite a lot of Muslim women, is whether a Muslim woman is allowed to marry somebody who does not profess what we know as the religion of Islam. Now, I'm going to address this topic in a bit of a more thoughtful and complex manner, because it's not a simple topic in our times. You know, perhaps in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was a clear enemy and friendship relationship with the people around him. But we are living in a time in which the exact idea of who loves God, who is a person of righteousness, who is a person of justice, has become more complex. Now, let me first share with you some stories in my experience that will give you some sort of background to my thinking on this topic. And there's no quick answer, I can't tell you right now, marrying a Muslim woman, marrying a person who is not does not profess to be Muslim or Islam is wrong or it's right. I think I'm going to, and neither does the Qur'an state it, by the way. The Qur'an has a few verses that refer to the question, and we will look at those verses also. It's pretty much by inference that people have arrived, that the common clergy have arrived at that position. So let me look at some of the incidents, some of my life experiences. You see, as a non-sectarian person, as a non-sectarian embracer of God Almighty, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as a non-sectarian embracer of all the prophets, making no distinction between all of them, from Adam down to Muhammad alayhi salam, as the Qur'an says, not making any distinction between any of them. I treat them all equally as the Qur'an instructs. As somebody like that, as somebody who believes that people were Muslim, in other words, people submitted or complied with God's will throughout the ages, from the time of Adam right up till the present time, when there is no known messenger or prophet in the world that we know of. As somebody who regards all of those people who are Muslim from the time of Adam right now to the time that we live in, those who embrace, who admit to God, those who accept God as the authority, as the final adjudicator in their lives, who shape their voluntary decisions and their voluntary actions in accordance with whatever can be deduced rationally and logically from an authentic word from God, or from anything that can be logically and authentically put together and inferred from nature. As somebody who regards all of those as even, this is what I want to say. As all of those as being equal, this is what I want to say. I have had the misfortune in my life of seeing Muslim, they call themselves Muslim teachers or scholars or priests, banning the marriage of one Muslim to another Muslim. Now here we're talking Muslim to Muslim. In fact, I was involved in several cases where a Shi'i brother or person approached me and said, look, I like to marry this Muslim woman. She's a Sunni, and the parents are not allowing it. Right? And I became involved with that, where I met the parents. The parents, most of the troublesome parents are parents who are connected to a priest, a Muslim priest. And in this one particular case, a Muslim priest was the grandfather of this daughter, of this girl. And he simply said, nope, no, there's no way, there's no legitimate way that a Shi'i can marry a Sunni girl. And in fact, they went so far as to state and to charge any offspring from that marriage to be illegitimate. So they then took the position that any child that is born from a marriage between a Shia and a Sunni, both Muslim, will be illegitimate. Now that, my friends, is the position that I've had to deal with. Now, if it was a once-off situation, it would have been fine. But I made several calls. I went and made calls to the senior officials within the official, priestly establishment in this part of the world. I made calls to the senior officials, some of the most senior people. And, talking around the point and, whatever, putting nice arguments up, basically to camouflage the position that they all agree with, that they are not allowed to marry. In another case that I also dealt with between a Shia man and a Sunni woman, they went so far as to tell the woman that your child is illegitimate and it cannot take the name of the father. And they forced that woman to take her name, to remove the name of the father from that child's name. So that is, the type of lengths that these traditional corrupt clergy, sectarian clergy, will go to, and that is the experience that I've had. I've had these cases. I've been embroiled in them. I was immersed in these cases where I had to give advice to the couple. Needless to say, when people are in love, that is when madhabs and sects become the least important thing to them. And in all of the cases that I dealt with, it ended up where the couple got married. And they said, to hell with the priests. Now, coming to the priests, actually, I want to say a word about the priests. Do you know that the Qur'an actually does refer to the priests, the Muslim priests, in all priests? In this verse here, on a Friday, when you listen to them screaming from the pulpits, when they abuse the pulpit of God, when they abuse the forum which God has created, the salah, when they abuse that forum, you will see this verse coming into its own. When you see them amongst people in this world, you will find a person who impresses with his talk. يُعَجِّبُكَ قَوْلُهُ. So he's there, up there on the stage, impressing the hell out of the people there in the church or in the mosque. He even takes God as for a witness, so he invokes God. وَيَشْهَدُ Allah ala ma fi qalbi. He tells the people, listen, what I'm saying to you is the word of God. And this is the word of Allah. And he uses Allah's name. وَأَلَدُّ خِصَامٍ. He will impress you and he will use God's name like crazy. But that man all the time actually being Aladul Khisam, he will be the deadliest enemy to you. The deadliest enemy. My friends, so I have no qualms with criticizing these imposters to religion, whether they are Christian imposters, Muslim imposters, Jewish imposters to God's divine order and religion. I'm equally against all of them. And we need to be equally abhorred, outraged by all of them. They offer nothing to the world. All they do here is to promote their own sectarian outlook on the world. And like I say to you, and I've mentioned to you in previous videos, those are the people that have thrown me out of the mosque at times for asking that we should have a spare thought for the hungry, for the dying, for the victims of apartheid. Those are the people that threw me out of the mosque. And I carry those memories as a badge of honor. But nowadays, those are the same people that are disallowing, condemning the marriage between a Muslim and another Muslim. So far be it from me to accept their guidance, my friends. Far be it from me to go to them for guidance. If you go to them for guidance, you are going to the devil for guidance. You are going to the enemy of God for guidance. You know, another proof of their villainy, of their impostorship, is, I don't know if you live in a Sunni society. I live in a majority Sunni community. And what is the greatest event afflicting the Muslim world right now? What is the greatest event facing the Muslim world in current affairs? It's the prospect of a war between Iran and America / Israel. It is the massacre, it is the genocide of the people in Gaza, isn't it? That is the biggest, uppermost thing in the minds of most people who confess to be Muslim. In this community where there's a majority Sunni, I've until this week, I've always tried to attend a mosque gathering on a Friday. I've always tried to take the path of solidarity with my Muslim brothers and sisters, and to go to these places where they preach lies and deceit and half-truths. But you know, it's getting too much for me now. It's getting way too much for me, because I've been unable to find any of these priests. And you are free to watch YouTube, the priests of South Africa. And you see there if any of them will ever say something in support of Iran, Hezbollah, or Ansarullah, the Houthis, or any other Shia group. And it's only the Shia groups, except for Hamas, that are supporting the Palestinians. But they absolutely refuse to pray. On this Friday, I heard this guy saying, we are going to make the qunut in the Salah. We are going to pray for the people of Gaza and for Palestine and for Hamas. And I'm waiting for him to say we are going to pray for Iran, who is facing a nuclear catastrophe, for Hezbollah, who is facing the wrath of that same evil entity called Israel. I couldn't hear a word from them. In other words, they are taking sectarian. They are taking sides in a sectarian way. They refuse to give support to those who are Shia, to the Shi'i brave warriors, because they are worried that it will put them in trouble with their sectarian fraternity. So they're basically promoting a fraternity, a sectarian Sunni fraternity, and it comes out clearly. And they've hijacked the mosques for that purpose. I haven't forgotten the purpose of this video. I'm coming to it. So let us come now to the attitude to the marriage of Muslim women to non-Muslim, or the word non-Muslim. Now let's just quickly stand still on that word non-Muslim. Yes, that word non-Muslim is ubiquitous. Everywhere Muslims use it, wherever they are. When they're in Sweden, they speak about the non-Muslims. When wherever we are in the sort of the so-called non-Muslim world, the Muslims refer to themselves as the Muslims and the rest of society as non-Muslims. A term that doesn't exist in the Qur'an. There is no legitimacy. It is a unsubstantiated, baseless term, the term non-Muslim. There is no such thing as a non-Muslim. And the Qur'an never ever refers to non-Muslim. And the Hadith books never ever refer to a non-Muslim. The Arabic for a non-Muslim would be to a ghayr Muslim. But I mean, I can't even think of an Arabic word like that. So they have actually coined a new term called a non-Muslim. Now, this term is very important because they incorporate this term when it comes to a Muslim woman marrying a non-Muslim man. So, in other words, they call them non-Muslim men, whereas the Qur'an does not use that term. The Qur'an does not use the term non-Muslim. The Qur'an does not see the world as Muslims and non-Muslims. The Qur'an sees the world as mu'min. First of all, the word Muslim is rarely used in the Qur'an. It's the word mu'min. And the Qur'an addresses humanity as humanity when it wants to speak to all of humanity, and it refers to those who embrace the Qur'an as the mu'minun. Those who embrace the message, who embrace the truth, who embrace the prophets, who embrace Isa and Muhammad and and Ibrahim and Adam and Nuh and Salih and Hud, and all of these prophets, when they embrace the prophet and the message, they are referred to as mu'minun, which means embraces. People who are affirming, adopting, endorsing the message. So the world is not divided between Muslims and non-Muslims. That's a foolish, made-up term, and believe me, there is absolutely no basis to that way of thinking. The way we should be thinking of humanity is between people who are adopters, embracers, endorsers of what is true, what is real, what is right, and those who cover up, those who obscure, those who suppress what is true, what is right, what is real, and what is indeed, in compliance with what God wants. So a famous Sheikh Al-Asi, in fact, speaks about this issue, and he mentions that there are millions, billions of people in this planet that are mu'minun by description, by qualities, by the quality which they have. I want to show you the video, then you can see for yourself. Okay, so look at this video with me, and we'll discuss it afterwards.
In the next 20 minutes, I want to do 3 questions. One is this. The world, 7-8 billion people, consists of 2 million Muslims, 2 billion Muslims, and the rest. Is there any way that within the Quran there was some fissioning of the world in a Muslim and a non-Muslim world? Is it that the whole world will be Islamic?
Okay, we go back to the basics. Number one, and this is part of the colonization of the contemporary mind. When someone says Islam or Islamic, it is understood the way Europeans and American powers understand Islam to be. So Islam becomes a religion just like other religions, and Islam is not a religion just like other religions. The word Islam itself means to acquiesce to the will of God. That's simply what it doesn't mean some religion. The other details that are included in this Islam are the movements and the functions of acquiescing to God. So if we take this broad understanding, we unshackle it from the theological constraints of Euro-American lexicon. If we think about, people as those who acquiesce or who yield to God, the one creator, then we consider them to be Muslims.
So, say Chinese. The Chinese have no conception of, let's say, God. They have conception of ethics and how, but not of supernatural beings or metaphysical beings. How would a Muslim view the Chinese as being, submitting to Allah?
Well, the Muslims would consider that type of belief to be wrong. I mean, simply speaking, that type of belief as a belief is wrong. But the person who has that type of belief, even though, quote unquote, theologically, he or she is not right, but in the works of his life, does he harm anyone? Because not harming anyone is a demonstration of yielding to God. Does that person help others when others need help? If that person does that, that's another demonstration of yielding to God. So you begin to, and you can take this on and on. So you
then everybody in the world is a Muslim.
Well, potentially. everyone in the world is a potential Muslim, or everyone in the world, not everyone, but most of the people in the world are Muslims, but they don't know that they are Muslims.
Okay.
Most of the people are Muslim, could be Muslim, and might not even be aware that they are Muslim. And that's the point that Sheikh Al-Asi is making here, is that the world is not divided between Muslims and non-Muslims. The world is divided between righteous people whose conduct are meritorious, whose conduct are beneficial to society, whose conduct are in line with nature, whose conduct are based on justice, on fairness. And there are those whose conduct are based on what is corrupt, unfair, unjust, against what, nature. And that, my friends, is really, if you care to read the Qur'an enough times, you will realize that that is the essence of the Qur'an. There is a call for people to fall in line with what is righteous, what is good, what is wholesome, what is beneficial, and to turn away from that which is in disregard of the suffering of the fellow human beings, disregarding, immersed in greed. The final chapters of the Quran are so eloquent when it speaks about those those greedy misers, those inconsiderate people, alladhi jama'a mala wa addada, those who are accumulating wealth, alhaakum takathur, those who are in a competition with wealth accumulation. My friends, we have to slip, and I don't know how it's going to be possible, because we are so deeply in the clutches, in the throngs of the propaganda, of the lies of these liars that the Quran speak about. These people who are the deadliest enemies of truth. Those preachers on a Friday, those preachers on a Sunday, those preachers in the synagogues, and also those Hindu preachers, Sadhguru and whoever else. And I'm not saying they're not saying anything that is true, but these are all lie peddlers who take you away from what is good, what is wholesome, what is righteous. Whether they are Hindu, whether they are Christian, Jewish, or Muslim. And so the point that I'm trying to make at this, right up till now, is that we have been brainwashed into a particular model of understanding of the world between Muslims and non-Muslims. Now, if you think carefully about that model, is it so dissimilar from the German model of we are the Germans and they are the non-Germans? You see, the Herrenvolk. Or the Jews, we are the Jews and they are the non-Jews. We are the chosen people. Or like, we are the whites and they are the non-whites. Because those are common terms. I grew up in a country where I was always a non-white. I grew up, I was told I'm a non-white. And you ask me, what is a non-white? They used to have boards on trains saying whites, non-whites. My friends, the idea of making yourself the positive and everything else the negative is a racist, xenophobic, and chauvinist approach. And the idea of the non-Muslim and the Muslim is based on chauvinism, racism, and xenophobia. And that is why I've made videos about this where I said the Muslims are xenophobic. They regard anything other than a person who professes to be Muslim as less than clean, less than righteous, less than guided, less than upright. Even though when you look at them, they worship the West. They worship the West because the West is, for the most part, and I'm not saying it's going to be like that, but if you go to places in Sweden, for the most part it's cleaner than the Arab world. It's more structured than the Arab world. It's more organized than the Arab world. And I'm just taking Sweden as a rough example. It still is, even though it might be under threat, because these racist, chauvinist Muslims, and unfortunately I have to speak the truth, the immigrants of Europe are bringing their chauvinism, their racism, their arrogance, their religious elitism, they are bringing it to Europe, and that is what causes a massive problem, whether it be in Britain, whether it be in Sweden, whether it be in France. These Arabs, they come there with their chauvinism, with their religious superiority complex, and they come there thinking that they have to civilize these white people that actually are there, where they actually go and look for a job and look for to make a living. The arrogance of that attitude is, for me, just mind-boggling. But let's continue on the topic here. And the topic here is the marriage of a so-called non-Muslim. Now, I want us to dispense with that word non-Muslim, because it's not a term that has any reality. It doesn't exist in the real world. In the real world, you have people who are embracing of what is natural, what is kind, what is just, what is upright. The word mu'min, that is the word mu'min. People who are, and if they see the Qur'an, and if they investigate the Qur'an, those are certainly the people that will say, these are words that I identify with. And I've in fact met people like that. I show them the verses of the Qur'an, and I tell them, is there anything you have against this? And they would tell me, it calls for feeding the poor, it calls for being kind to the orphan, it calls for being a person who is charitable. I don't have a problem with that. And then if I tell them, what if I told you that these verses that are saying that you should kill everyone in sight, what if I tell you that those verses are not, that is not the meaning of those verses? And they tell me, well, then it even gets better. So, my friends, the world is not divided between Muslims and non-Muslims. Dispense with that idea. That is an idea that was put in your brain by these aladul khisam, by these great enemies of God from the pulpits that they've hijacked. Do not accept that categorization of humanity. The Qur'an refers to people by their cultural or by their religious heritage. So the Qur'an will often refer to Jews as the Yahud. It will often refer to people who are schooled in Judaism, schooled in Christianity, as people who are schooled in those, the people of the book. And it will often regard those people of the book as on a par with those of the Qur'an. Because in one verse, Allah makes it very clear that you are not here to judge between them. I mean, here it's clearly written in the holiest of holy scriptures, Inna alladhina amanu, those who embrace, walladhina hadu, and the Jews, wasabi'un, and the Sabians, Nasara, and the Christians or the Nazarenes. Whoever acknowledges God and the final day while working righteously will have no fear, nor should they despair. Do you want to maybe throw this verse out of the Qur'an? I think that is what many of these corrupt priests want to do. Is they want to maybe just, if they could have their way, they would just get rid of chapter 5, verse 69, because this verse is putting those who are Jews, those who are Sabians, those who are Christians, and anyone else who acknowledges God and the final day while working righteously on the same level. It puts us all on the same level. What else can you deduce from this verse? It's putting us all on the same level. Whoever acknowledges God in the final day while working will have no fear. La khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun, and absolutely no despair for them. My friends, this is what the Qur'an says. I'm not telling you now what the madhab, Shafi'i, Hanafi, because these are all fallible men, and I'm not guided by Hanafi. I'm not guided by Shafi'i. I'm guided by the truth as it is revealed in the scriptures of God, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in those scriptures, the word is very, very clear. Your religious affiliation is just a tag. It's just a label which you put on yourself. It has no guarantee. It offers you no guarantee. In fact, if we look at the Muslims, on the contrary, I'm going to show you a verse now that refer to the Muslims. Okay, I want you to take very, very careful note of the following verses, which I want to read to you now. These verses refer to Muslims, to people who were in the camp of the Prophet. People who were in the camp of the Prophet, alayhi salam, as he set off to battle the enemy. So they were Muslim. They were saying, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasul. They were there. Here the Qur'an etches an incident in history, in eternity. It makes a permanent record of this event. Now these are Muslims. If they really desired to join the fight, they would have made preparations. Also, God was averse to them being mobilized into the army, and so He caused them to lag behind until they were eventually told, rest then on your laurels. Okay, here comes the important part. Referring to Muslims that were half-baked, that were uncommitted, that were lagging behind, that were unwilling to make the sacrifice. Had they joined the fighting ranks with you, they would only have added nothing but trouble. Muslims are adding nothing but trouble, rushing up and down in your ranks while sowing sedition among you. My brothers and sisters, I haven't invented these verses. These verses are your book, it's your Qur'an, and it's speaking about Muslims being troublesome, making sedition. There would have been some among you who would have listened to them. You should know that God is aware of the ways of the wrongdoers. Wallahu alimun bi-zalimeen. My friends, there's no other way you can read those verses. Those verses refer to the Prophet going to battle, Muslim people who profess him as the Prophet being enemies, being seditious, going against the interests of that community called, the believers. So my point here that I'm trying to make is, and I hope it's taking a while, but I need to make this very carefully, is that you see Islam, being Muslim, joining the Muslim Jama'ah community, it offers you zero guarantee. You have to match all of that with righteous actions, with a sense of generosity, with a sense of sacrifice, with putting your own life on the line if necessary, with putting your own possessions, everything you own on the line if necessary. And my friends, the world is not made of Muslims and non-Muslims. The world is made of people who are righteous, true to God, honest, just, and those who are unjust, against what is right and what is fair and what is, in the interest of people. That is the division of humanity. Yes, we take pride. I take pride that I am an adherent of the Mus'haf, of the revealed message. But similarly, I take pride in looking at the Torah and at the Injil and identifying all the verses that support or that is judged to be right or truthful in light of the Qur'an's criterion. So by using the criterion of the Qur'an, I take pride in saying that the Injil, where the Injil speaks, where Jesus throws the money changers out of the church, out of the temple, I endorse it because the money changers are the Ahlul Riba. They are the people of Riba. And it makes sense that Jesus went and kicked over the tables of the Ahlul Riba, of the money changers. And so, for me, my friends, it is a religion of the religion of God is not the religion of these false priests on a Friday. You know, I mentioned to you how corrupt they are, how they impose their narrow sectarian thing even amongst Muslims, how they judge even against those who support the Palestinians. They refuse to pray for Iran. They refuse to pray for the Ansarullah. They refuse to pray for the Hezbollah. And this is a time in which we should wake up and see that these corrupt devils are occupying your pulpits. And, you know, my friends, I will be honest with you, until this last Friday, I made an attempt to go to the gathering on a Friday, and I'm more and more struggling to drag myself to listen to this balderdash, to the utter invented nonsense. You know, I asked my son one of these weeks when we were going to the mosque, I asked him, is somebody who makes up a lie and somebody who repeats the lie, are they both the same? And we couldn't actually reach some sort of agreement or finality. You know, if you know it's a lie and you're repeating it, are you as evil as the person who invented the lie? I'd like to believe that if you are spreading anything without proof, hatu burhanakum in kuntum sadiqin. Bring your proof. If you are promoting anything without proof, without evidence, you are as evil as the person who has made it up. So if you are talking to me about Jibreel has 1,000 wings, that balderdash, that fantasy, that bunk, is as evil as the man who made it up the first day, because you have no proof. You have no proof. And hadith is no proof. Hadith is no proof. Hadith is not a proof of truth, because you get weak hadiths and you get strong hadiths. And so if you know that there's contaminated water, if you know there's water, there's 2 glasses of water, one of them has poison and the other one is clear, and you are guaranteed one of those glasses are poison and the one is clear, what will you do? You won't drink either of them. You won't drink either of them. So hadith is no longer a proof. Hadith is only a proof when it corresponds with the Qur'an, or when it corresponds with what is natural, what is real, what is empirically verifiable. But you cannot say that hadith is true just because it's a hadith. That's not, there's no basis to that. Okay, so let's come to the point of this video. Can a Muslim, and I think you understand the terms now, can a mu'min woman marry a Ahlul Kitab, or a person who is from an alternative cultural tradition? Also a mu'min, by the way. Remember the verse that said you cannot judge between them. So somebody who is a mu'min, who is part of the community, that is the community of embracers. Come, let us say the Muslim community. And you have a man who comes from the community of, let's say, not tagging themselves as Muslim, but also believing and being righteous. Can that happen? Now let's look at the Qur'an for the answer. Let us go straight to the verse. And what does this verse say? This verse says, this is the day that everything wholesome, which means everything that is good, that is not bad, like pork, everything that is wholesome is made lawful for you. So in other words, not disgusting things, not harmful, anything of harm, but those that is wholesome, that which is wholesome, everything wholesome is made lawful for you. And then it goes into including food of the people of the book. Now this verse starts by saying, this is the day that everything wholesome, al-yawma uhilla lakum. It doesn't say to you and to your women, it says to you in general. Al-yawma uhilla lakum tayyibat. All that is genuine, wholesome and refined and good, Al-yawma uhilla lakum, it says all, and we are not reading their men, we are reading their men and women, please. Al-yawma uhilla lakum, which means lakum and lakun. Everything wholesome is made lawful for you, including food of the people of the book. So the people of the book are the people who uphold a code, a law, a system, who are not lawless. Their food is lawful for you, and your food is lawful for them. Still, the masculine is used. If you want to be technical here, it means their food is halal for your men. The food of the people of the book is halal for your men. And your food, the food of your men is halal for them. If you are being technical or unnecessarily, then you are going to say, but this verse refers only to men. But we all agree that this verse refers to the mu'minun in general. The food of all people who are righteous, who are upright, who believe in a book, who believe in a code, all of their food is good for us. If they make a nice steak and they, grill a lovely steak or a lovely pot of seafood or a lovely, chicken sandwich, it is lawful. Whatever these priests, these liars say from the pulpits which they've hijacked, the Qur'an has made, if a people of the book prepares for you a steak, a grilled steak, it is lawful for you, my friends. And you go and find for me a verse that contradicts this verse. Then the verse goes on. So first of all, it says, their food is fine for you, and your food is fine for them. Then it completes the thought, and it extends that lawfulness to marriage. Lawful also are enfranchised women and braces, as well as the enfranchised women from the people of the book. It's still addressing the masculine. It is still addressing the masculine. It is addressed the masculine for food, and now it addresses the masculine for wives, for women. You may marry their women because the Qur'an is addressing the masculine as a general, as a broad category of all the believers. Lawful are enfranchised women embraces, as well as enfranchised women from the people of the book that preceded you, when you pay their dowries and within the secure confines of marriage, not permissively or in secret affairs. Anyone who undermines this trust will have his efforts rendered fruitless and will be a loser in the afterlife. My friends, I hope you have read very, very carefully with me. There's the Arabic if you want to make sure that I'm giving you a faithful translation of the Arabic. Please, if you're an Arab guru and you know Arabic, go and read this verse and you will agree with me that the masculine is addressed when it comes to food, and that masculine is maintained when it comes to women. But there is no reason that we should now exclude the feminine just because the masculine is used as a generality. Because nothing that is bad for a man can be good for a woman. There's nothing that is generally in fiqh. Whatever is halal on a man is halal on a woman, unless it is specifically stated. Now let me show you a verse where it is, because what these lying priests are saying is that no, but it is implicit in this verse. It is implicit in this verse that, like the Qur'an says, Muslim man can marry a believing or a person of the book, non-Muslim, but it doesn't say that for a Muslim woman. So because Allah left it out, it's haram. But that goes in the face of the principle of the Qur'an. The Qur'an's primary principle is whatever is unlawful is specifically stated. That is the basis on which madhabs function. Whatever is unlawful must be explicitly stated. And what they are saying is that is implicit. What they are saying is that, you know what, this verse doesn't say it's allowed for women, so we must assume it's not allowed. Turning the whole concept of making explicit the unlawful on its head. Do you get what I'm saying? This verse makes it implicit that women are allowed also to marry righteous, wholesome men who embrace God. Remember the initial word is everything wholesome. So not corrupted, not evil, not disingenuous, not an evil man or an evil woman. Their food, their wives, their husbands from them, wives from them are permitted. Now, if you want to fight me and say, Anwar, it's not, fight with the Qur'an, don't fight with me. The Qur'an has not made it explicit that Muslim women may not marry Muslim men. There is no way you have to invoke an implicit meaning to get to your fiqh position that Shafi, Hanafi and all these old men of 1,000 years ago spoke. We are not living 1,000 years ago. We are living now, my friends. We are living in a time when decent, good, kind-hearted men who are not professing your religion are coming to your women and offering marriage to them. They come as believers in God. They come as righteous people. They come as upright people. They come as honest people to your people. They come as wholesome men. And the verse states, everything that is wholesome is made lawful to you, including the food, not just the food. So everything else that is wholesome from the people of the book are permitted. My brothers and sisters, but now let me take it one step further. There is another verse. Now you're going to tell me, but God would have explicitly said that your women may marry their men. No, because if God left it out, He left it out. For good reason, because He left it out, because He was talking in general about the food and the husbands and the wives. Now let me show you another verse. There's another verse where God didn't leave it out. Where God didn't leave it out. Let's look at that verse. Chapter 2, verse 221. Now here Allah did not leave it out. Here He was explicit. Do not marry female pagans until they embrace. A servant woman who embraces is better than a female pagan, even if she impresses you. So here it is quite clear that men are not an embracing man, a man who is upright, who is righteous, who believes, who admits to the truth of God, the truth of nature, the truth of justice, shall not marry a pagan who denies all of the above. Also, and here comes my point, it is explicitly made here, the point, also do not marry pagan men until they embrace. So in this particular example in chapter 2 verse 221, it has been explicitly stated that marriage to pagans are outlawed. A servant man who embraces is better than a pagan man, even if he impresses you. So in other words, this verse here in fact supports the previous verse. Why would God say now to women that they cannot marry a pagan man? Because it's already assumed that they're not supposed to marry so-called non-Muslim. They are the ones leading you to hell. So my friends, do you see what I'm getting at? Your priests, the liars, the sectarianists, those who don't make up the lies but who spread the lies that were made up, who spread words that they have no proof for. And I'm offering you proof for what I'm telling you. The Qur'an is explicitly stating the food of the people of the book are lawful for you and their husbands, and their wives, and wives from them. And then it is quiet about the women when it comes to the food as well as to the spouses. It is implicit in the meaning that their food and their spouses are fine. Marry them those who are wholesome, who are righteous, who are upright. And then the other verse is very explicit. Pagans, people who reject any code, any system of law, any sort of accountability, don't marry them. Don't marry them. Now here comes the conclusion. My friends, I said to you earlier, I'm not going to come to a specific answer. And this is why. Today, the line between pagan and wholesome people is not very, very clear. You see, it's a judgment call for you as a parent. When a man who is not admitting to the traditional religion of Islam as we know it, but who is a righteous, decent, upright man, comes to your daughter and makes an offer of marriage, you need to ascertain if this man is a person who lives by a code that is positive, that is righteous, that is in line with the will of God. Now you see a guy coming there asking for your daughter's hand in marriage, but he believes in open marriage. He believes in a man doesn't have to work for, a man has no role to play in the family. There is no point to this life. This life is just a dead end, and he comes with a nihilistic attitude. He comes with a narcissistic attitude. He comes with you see, because in our times it is hedonism and nihilism. Go and read those words up. It's very important. The paganism of our time is hedonism and nihilism. Now, if people come to you, a young man comes and asks your daughter in marriage, no matter how kind and how decent and how soft-spoken he is, but he is a nihilist and he is a hedonist. He is basically a pagan, my dear friends. He is basically a polytheist. He is a mushrik. And that is why I say I will look very, very carefully at the person who comes with the offer of marriage. But if somebody comes to you who works in a public community hospital for half the salary, saving lives every day as a doctor, believing in God, admitting to the righteousness of nature, of what is, admitting to whatever we believe in should be what is established in terms of proof, who believes in love and kindness to his family, to his in-laws, to his future wife. If that man comes to your daughter and he does not admit technically to being a follower, adherent as the Muslim community, and there's many good reasons why people don't want to be Muslim today, because Muslims are generally not a good exemplification of the book of Allah. Muslims are not exemplifying the book. So you cannot blame somebody who is not choosing that way, of people are not, because Muslims are not choosing the Qur'an. So you can't blame somebody who wants to, have a problem with Muslims while Muslims are themselves rejecting the Qur'an and following the devils who preach on a Friday. The devils who lie and promote lies that were made up in earlier years, saying Jibreel has 1,000 wings, and you can marry a child of 7 years old, and if you become a Muslim and a non-Muslim, then you must be killed, or you must throw people off buildings. That kind of nonsense. If somebody has a problem with that, you can't blame them. And that is, my friends, why I say I treat every case on its merits. We need to come back to looking at people in terms of their character, in terms of are they kind, are they wholesome, are they decent men. Obviously, we prefer a person who shares our worldview in its totality. Obviously, I would love for my daughter to marry somebody who adheres and endorses the Qur'an cover to cover, and not to have somebody who is still in the process of discovering the Qur'an. But when somebody's in the process of discovering and looking at the Qur'an, you cannot judge them evil, my friends. You cannot judge them as evil. The truth is from your Lord. Let him who wants accept it, and let him who wants reject it. My friends, I hope I've made the answer clear to you, is that there is a difference between pagans and people of the book. And even amongst people of the book, we are on a par when it comes to God. God will decide who to reward and who to send to hell. And we must understand that, as the verse that I've shown to you, there are Muslims who have been oppressors. There are still Muslims today who are oppressors in the world. Just to say that my daughter must marry a Muslim, and then that Muslim is a member of ISIS and a member of Al-Qaeda and a member of the Taliban and a member of all these corrupt, evil, deviant groupings that believe in killing and massacring innocent people. No, my friend. That is not the choice that is before you. And throw away the term non-Muslim. We are all either people who are people of justice, of righteousness, or we are people who reject righteousness and justice in God. I hope that clarifies the matter. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.